Keeping your business healthy in today's marketplace can be a challenging and overwhelming task. From the threat of litigation inside and outside your organization and the inefficiencies that can rob your bottom line as a result of unproven marketing programs, the deck can be stacked against you. To get ahead of these challenges and stay ahead of your competition, the Bottled Business Sense Show provides practical business solutions that uniquely emphasize key legal principles, management techniques, and marketing strategies to protect and ensure the longevity of your business. You'll learn how to implement marketing and protection principles equal to those used by today's most successful corporations. Join your host, Bill Bernard, Rick Moscoso, and Steve Smith for some high-energy discussion that will inspire you to take control of your business so it can prosper in today's consistently challenging business environment.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Bottled Business Sense Show. It's Tuesday morning here at 10 a.m. And I am Rick Moscoso, happy to be here today, and we have a great topic to talk about today, and it's going to be with Steve Smith. This will be his first featured topic as with myself, Bill Bernard, my other co-host, and of course with Steve. But before we bring Steve on, I want to bring on Bill and see how he is doing this morning. How are you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing great, Rick, thanks. No wisecracks about my shirt. Thank you, I appreciate that. It's an old WFB legal consulting shirt. We always endeavor to look professional on the show, folks, but I just couldn't help pulling this out of the archives and giving it a try. So forgive me, but we're going with that today. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the show today, too. Again, we're in the process of ironing out all of the the little quirks on a three-man show and making sure we get the shows on a more frequent basis. And that'll take a little bit of time, but it won't detract from the great topics that we have. And I know you got a great one today, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks again. I know this is the second show, but it's really nice to do this. I mean, the energy you guys produce is really good. And I think the banter that takes place while we're trying to deliver some really high-quality content that business professionals might be able to walk away and apply, I think that's a great service. So I'm just really glad to be a part of it.
Well, great. That's what we try to do for our viewership. Bill and I have been broadcasting for over a year now, and with the addition with Steve's expertise, we want to continue the content of our delivery of content that we're providing, both on the legal and marketing standpoint, the visual marketing as well as the marketing coaching aspect with the addition of Steve. And so today's topic that Steve is going to discuss with us is really how to effectively expand a single proprietor business. And so most of us, a lot of us anyway, that listen to the show and the folks that we know are single props. We wear many hats in our own companies, from doing the secretarial work to the billing to the actual thing that we're good at doing. And so Steve's going to bring some of those things to light and really how to get beyond that to help grow your business. So as people look at expanding, Steve, what is the first thing that you discuss with them and how to get beyond where they're at now?
Well, for many of the clients that I work with that are at the starting of their business, they might be in just an absolute organic startup. They're creating from nothing, or somehow they've gotten into the business, but it's them. As you said, they're the chief cook and bottle washer. Typically, what I try to do is find out what it is they want the business to become. A lot of times, once people realize what's involved in getting a business up beyond yourself. You have employees, you have partners, you have other support people doing things for you. It changes the whole complexion of what you do in the business if you're the business owner. And not everybody's prepared for that. And certainly once they realize what is the extent of that, it sometimes causes them to rethink what they really, really want out of their business. Now, if you've got a nice, Bill, I know you've got a nice legal business, and you're always getting new clients, and you've got clients that you keep on retainer. If that business is meeting all of your financial and professional development goals, and you just like where you're at, Great. Keep doing it, because not enough people get to that point. But there are people that start businesses with the idea of having it become bigger than themselves. And so, Rick, to your question, the first thing I want to find out is, what do you want it to end up being? You know,
Right.
how big do you want it to be? How expansive do you want it to be? Do you want it to be multiple locations? You know, do you want it to have multiple product lines that are much more than what you happen to be representing now? You have to figure out what that end game looks like so you can chart the course and figure out what things to do at the right moments.
Yeah, and along those lines, Steve, I might add, and you're right, I run more of a boutique firm, but you're right, when you do expand, in addition to those things you just mentioned, you have to be aware of when you bring on employees, if you have the improper employee agreements, the proper handbooks in place, the proper documentation and files that you need to do for each employee, and make sure they're on board and they know their rights as an employee. You know what you have to do as an employer. These are additional features that go hand in hand in expanding a business. You're
absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think, Steve, to your point, it's really important to really understand and visualize what the end goal is. What does the end look like where you want to be? Because
Right.
then that will help you, as you coach business owners, kind of lay out a path or lay out a goal structure to get them there, depending
Right.
upon what that is, right?
Yes, and once you get clear about that, and the business owner that I'm working with has embraced what's necessary to get to that point, the next question we get into is this business model scalable? And if it is, to what degree? You know, if as a sole proprietor, if you're personally involved in delivering on the product or service that you're in business to sell, you've got to first figure out, what is your capacity limit? You know, if I'm operating at a point where I cannot handle one more order or one more client, that's your capacity limit. And for some people, they can operate quite nicely at that limit without a whole lot of stress. Other people, you know, given the complexity of the work that they do, may realize that at capacity they're this close to just exploding.
Mm-hmm. So why would it be important to understand if the business is scalable? If you know, you've been doing it for so long and you're, you know, relatively successful, why would that be important?
Well, because sometimes when you start looking at the cost of running your business and you ask yourself, let's just say I have a business that in my facility, you know, I'm tapped out at my level and I want to go beyond that. So now you have to look at, can you expand the facility you're in? Do you have to go out and find other facilities? Given where the market you're in is being scalable, meaning moving to another city, opening up in another location. That might mean bringing on location managers and things of that nature. Is that the kind of thing that you want to take on? You know, are you willing to invest that level of money in order to scale it if it means that, you know, getting beyond yourself, if it's not possible in the location you're at now? Great example, around town, the city that I live in, we've got tons and tons of restaurants. I mean, I'm amazed when I go on the internet and just search for, you know, what's new around Lake Forest, how many restaurants just pop up. And some of these ones that are really popular, you know, they're in certain locations where there's no place else to go. So they're forced into going to another location. Well, you can't just go down 2 blocks and open another one up. That's nuts. You know, you've got to start looking at where else you want to be able to put another location in order to grow your business. Now, there's a difference in getting more out of where you're at and what you're doing and actually replicating what you're doing to another location. Because now you've got infrastructure costs, you've got employee costs, you've got all this other kind of stuff that you've got to put in that other location. So that's what I'm talking about is it scalable, and is it the kind of scale that you're willing to take on?
And you've also got to be aware, I think, too, Steve, of the fact that when you're expanding this business, it may not be just in terms of employees, but another business owner. And then you're going to have to consider, do you want to have a business entity? What kind of entity? Do you want to take on a partner and be liable for whatever that partner does? And I've always frowned on partnerships per se, but all of these things really encompass a tremendous amount of forethought, doesn't it? And I mean, you really have to be sharp, and you really have to have a goal and a focus in order to be able to do this expeditiously.
Absolutely, and it's not to say that all of these considerations and some of the pros and cons that go along with them should be a kind of a stop sign to say don't go any farther. It's basically saying understand the road you're getting ready to go down. And as long as you understand that and you're far enough ahead that you're starting to plan the various steps required to expand beyond yourself, then at least you know what you're getting into. You can sidestep some of the things that a lot of your true dyed-in-the-wool entrepreneurs who see something and just go after it. They don't think of anything else. They just jump in and just figure out once they're there. That works, but that also leaves a lot of dead bodies along the way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, you want to do this right. You don't want to be hiring, a general manager off of Craigslist. I mean, you want to put some.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. Well, I guess it does.
So when we look at the goals that we have for expansion and determine, what kind of structure you want to form this expansion in. So, for our viewers, what are the different ways that we can look to expanding our businesses?
Well, there's a number of things that you can do. The one that most people gravitate to right up front is what I call organic growth. You simply work your model from a marketing standpoint. You work it and you work it and work it, and you build from what you have. So you attract more customers, you keep more customers, you eventually offer more services and products, and you just build out from where you started. That's organic growth. Okay. That, depending on what you're involved in and where you are in the curve, how much competition may be there around you, it may take a while, but it's also less expensive than some of the other things I'm going to talk about. So that's the organic growth side of things. The other thing you can do, and Bill kind of alluded to this, is you can look around for partners to take on. I'm actually working with a client now that already got to that phase of taking on a partner. Now they're trying to figure out how to work with each other. And so, that happens quite a bit. So you really got to sit down and think, if you're going to expand your business by inviting another business owner to come in with their business and join forces, that's when you got to be talking to guys like Bill to find out contractually how to make this work up front so that you don't get any surprises and any real bad outcomes later on because you haven't set the ground rules to what everybody understands and expects.
That's right.
But that's another way to do it.
That's right. Make sure those ground rules are in writing. Amen, Steve.
Now, there's pros and cons to doing that. The pros are that if you find the right person with the right forward thinking about what they want out of their business, and you guys can work together, and it's very complementary in nature, meaning that the two products coming together, the two services, have some relevancy to each other, you can do that fairly quickly without a whole lot of cash outlay. Of course, you could do the other thing where you kind of acquire somebody. I have a client now that's in the yacht shipping business. They're actually located over in Spain. And he just acquired a business that offers an ancillary service that would be a nice addition to their portfolio of boat services. So that was another way to do it, but there was an outlay of cash that was involved in that, and you've got to come up with a contractual agreement because the former owner is still involved in the business. So there's a whole lot of thought process. Plus, once you buy somebody else's business, you're taking possession of not only their opportunities but their problems. So you've got to know that your core business is running well enough that you can devote the time to getting into this new venture without your core business suffering while you're trying to figure out the new venture.
And that's another thing that needs to be documented in stone. You need to be able to be aware of those debts and the liabilities and who's going to share them, or what's going to be part of the company when you start the new business with someone else. All of these things are so intricate and involved that Steve, Rick, and I always said from day one of the show, the three people you need on your team is an attorney, an accountant, and a marketing guy. You really do. I still believe that even now.
Well, so the fourth one I was going to throw out there is pulling investors together to be able to expand on the footprint that you've already started. Let's say you've got a business that's really running well. I mean, you've dialed in the processes, you've figured out what makes money, you've figured out how to market the thing. So typically when people get to a business model that runs that well, the thing they start thinking about is, how do I franchise this? How do I get more people to do the exact same thing in other places? And that's, you can do that. I mean, you bring in investors, they get a share of the business. They all, most of the time, they're operating investors, meaning they're going to put some money into the business, but they're going to be responsible for doing things in the business to help to grow the whole thing. And I know, Bill, you've worked with clients that have attempted to do things like that. You have to have operating agreements that everybody understands. Everybody feels that the equity and the investment are compatible. So that's another way to do it, to be able to get your business beyond yourself.
And in fact, Steve, it's interesting you mentioned that. When you do choose to bring somebody in who may just contribute capital, for example, you're going to want to know what entity you want to choose, because some entities are better than others, or clearly are better than others, if one of the individuals who's going to obtain some of the ownership, if one of those individuals is only going to contribute capital, that becomes extremely important to have documented in the right entity.
Yeah, because to me it sounds like, I mean, obviously the first two choices that you have are the least expensive and least risk. Whereas, if you're acquiring another business or you're bringing in investors, that can certainly be very risky, or the risk reward is certainly high. But at the same time, like you said, you're inheriting a lot of risk in that company that you could be acquiring, and if you're looking at to bring on investors, you're on the hook for a lot of stuff.
Well, look, I mean, everything you do in business comes with some level of risk. Okay, so if you're innately thinking that you want to build your business up to a size and shape that goes way beyond what you can produce on your own, you better be comfortable with risk. If you are risk averse, don't go there, because it's going to affect the way you make decisions. It's going to affect the plans and the actions you put forward. It's going to affect a lot of things that are going to cripple your ability to actually make your plan work. But if you don't have a problem with calculated risk, and you really want to make that business much bigger than you have now, every one of these things is viable. You just have to know what the downsides are.
Yeah.
Organic growth means it could take a while. Partners mean that you got to know exactly who you're buying into, and you guys have got to be on the same page, or it's going to end like a marriage. It's going to end ugly. If you're buying another business or bringing investors in, you're on the hook to be accountable to people outside your business, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, as long as you understand what you've walked into. They understand what they're getting in return, and everybody's on the same page, and they know what to expect, from an actual rate of return, as well as the amount of time it takes to get there.
And just a quick side note on that issue, you can start working together before you have an entity formed, and believe it or not, after that entity is formed, under some circumstances, it can be responsible for whatever deal went sour prior to establishing that entity, if you and this new individual you're working with start representing, making certain representations to clients. So you really have to be careful. And while expansion is such an exciting thing, and you make it exciting in the way you explain it, Steve, you really have to be aware of dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what you described, Steve, is as far as growing your business, you've helped people establish the goal. Let's say we've gone through that step already. Now they've decided, okay, I want to go with door number 1, 2, 3, or 4. So they know exactly how they want to expand their business. What other considerations do they really need to take a look at before they dive in deep?
Okay, here's the thing that I probably get asked the most, and it's the thing that most people don't inherently look to first. So here's an example. Let's just say you decide you want a second restaurant location. Okay, so you go out and you scout out the location. You make arrangements with the with the landlord for the lease. You get all the equipment in, you get up and running. Or you could have like a factory, and you want to double it, because all of a sudden the place next door has become vacant and you can expand, and so you take on all that additional square footage, and you put more inventory in. You're doing all the infrastructure expansion. Okay, Well, the way I like to explain that is just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to show up. Okay? The minute you start taking on more infrastructure costs, more people costs, more equipment costs, more leasing, more insurance, more all that kind of stuff that you're on the hook for, you've raised the cost of operating your business. If you don't have a real robust, predictable marketing plan in place to drive enough revenue into the business to offset those costs you've just now incurred, now you're in a situation where the next thing you're doing is getting on the phone, calling your banker to see if you can get your line of credit bumped. And that's okay, but if you really don't know how you're going to drive extra revenue into the business, you're just taking on more debt that you're going to eventually have to pay somebody else back. So what I tell people all the time, before you make that move, before you pull that trigger, sit down and really take a look at how you're marketing. Who are you going to take on an expansion? It's because you're offering an additional service for which there's a new untapped channel of customers out there to go after. Get your marketing to the point where it's almost choking you because you can't handle anymore before you decide to expand into more space or more people or things like that. Because if you don't, you immediately go into this, oh my God, I'm losing money, or I can't make payroll, or all that kind of stuff.
You don't want to take 2 steps backwards to go 1 step forward, Steve, right?
No, but that's what will happen if you take on huge infrastructure costs associated with expansion and you haven't figured out how to drive the top line revenue to eventually pay for it.
Right.
And that defeats the whole purpose if you end up even deeper in the hole, trying to expand than staying where you're at. So when you have a client that comes to you, Steve, and you have all these steps identified, you have the goal identified, you know how they're going to structure their business, you know how they're going to market. What's the first step for them? What do they need to do after that?
Okay. First thing we do is look at their marketing, what they're getting from it, who they're actually trying to attract. Is it predictable? Is it sustainable? Okay. After we go through that process, the second thing I look at is, how efficient is your existing platform business? Do you have processes in place? Do you have the right people doing the right things? Is it a smooth, well-oiled machine? Here's the reason why. When you take on expansion, which means maybe buying a new product line or launching maybe a new, if you're like, I got a guy that's in the magazine business, and he launched into Riverside, so he opened up a whole new, magazine distribution system in a whole other market. Whenever you do something like that, if you're going to do it well, and if you're the kind of owner that most times I work with, you're really invested in what's going on there. You're going to end up taking your eye off the ball of the main business. And that's okay if the main business is running well enough and you're able to monitor it and keep an eye on it while you're investing in this other startup stuff so that your main business doesn't falter while you're trying to get the new thing up and running. I've seen a lot of people that do that. The existing business doesn't really run as well as it could. They're working 14, 15 hours a day and just kind of keep it going. And it's making money, but they've always wanted this other thing out there that now has showed up, and so they're going to jump on it. And they go jump on it, and they spend 2 or 3 months cultivating that, and while they're doing that, the business that's supporting the expansion starts cracking apart.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I look at is, let's take a look at what are the vital processes at running your business, and are they tuned up well? Are the people in it the right people? Are they doing the job? Can they be left alone for a week without you being there? Are you confident that if you deviate from the day-to-day operations of that primary business to get into this new expansion idea, that when you come back after 30 days, your regular business is still going to be running well?
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're coming up towards the end of the show. Steve, in a nutshell, would you like to just summarize any important tip here that you might want to give somebody who's looking at expanding?
Yeah, if you've got ideas of expansion, sit down and develop the plan, the future plan. What exactly are you expanding into? Why is that a good idea? Is the business scalable? If you run a manufacturing plant and you want to double the size of your capacity, but when it's all said and done, you're only going to raise your bottom line 10%, is that a scalable idea? Is it financially worth doing that? So figure that out. After it's scalable, look at your marketing. Say, look, if all of a sudden I'm going to increase my operating cost by 30%, am I able to double my marketing capabilities? You know, how long is it going to take me to break even on this new venture? You know, how many months am I going to take money out of my own pocket to keep it going? You know, and then after you look at the marketing, look at your existing business and saying, is this thing really running well? If I decided to walk away for 60 days and make a weekly phone call to see how things were going, am I going to be happy with what I hear? That's what you have to look at if you're going to successfully take your business up a couple notches and keep it there.
Yeah, yeah. You really need a well-defined plan, and you know, folks, if you're looking to doing something like this, expanding, make sure you have the right guy looking over your shoulder, at least looking at your plan, looking at how you want to structure this, what's your end goal in mind, and helping you along the way. Because if you try and do this yourself, you're just asking for trouble. If you're looking for help from a guy like Steve, what is the best way to get a hold of you, Steve?
You know, people can visit me on my website. That's probably the easiest thing, and that's, you know, www.growthsourcecoaching.com. I got plenty of resources on there that you can tap into. You can email me or you can call me at 949-951-9163, and I frequently talk with people. Just, you know, carte blanche. Hey, you know, give me a call. Tell me what you're looking at. If I can help you, if I can give you 20 minutes of perspective on the phone that's going to keep you from making a disastrous move down the road, I'm more than happy to do it.
And of course, they can always get a hold of Steve through the Bottle Business Sense Show as well, and Facebook and LinkedIn and all that good stuff, right, Rick?
Yeah, all of the contact information will be below this video and anywhere that you see the video online. So, Steve, again, this was a great topic. I'm hopeful that it was very beneficial for our viewers out there and listeners. And by the way, for the listeners and viewers out there that don't know, while Steve is located here in Southern California, he is not restricted or confined to Southern California. He does help people from all over the world. So you know, reach out to Steve if you're interested in expanding. How to do it, why to do it, when to do it, and how to do it right. So again, Steve, thank you very much for the topic today.
Thank you, guys. You made a great conversation out of it today, so I appreciate that.
And we'll look forward to seeing everybody again for the next show. And again, we'll be posting when the show will be changing over to more than one time per week and how frequent it'll be and things of that nature. But so keep an eye out for that, and it's just going to get better and better.
All right.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We will see you again next week right here at Tuesday, 10 a.m. on the Bottled Business Sense Show.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. All right. See ya.